Meanwhile, we have updates from OTAs, and they're not good. Too long, didn't read. They're not good. Let me give you a few updates. Alex Van Pelt, prior to the session, said that Drake Maye looks impressive, but he did say there is no timetable for him getting on the field and that Jacoby Brissett is the Patriots starter. I don't know that I've heard that verbalized from anyone else in the Patriots organization. So that was Van Pelt. Reese tweeted out right after the session, most notable development from Patriots practice today. Drake Maye took reps immediately after Jacoby Brissett. That's good. Second in line, going ahead of Bailey Zappi. He says this was a change from the two practices open to the reporters over the prior 2 weeks when Zappi was second. Okay, so far so good. Let's get into the actual reps themselves. This is from Andrew Callahan at the Boston Herald. He says Drake Maye takes quarterback 2 reps in all team periods. A change from media access, echoing what Reese said. Bad offense throughout. It was a heavy red zone practice, which means the field is condensed. Quarterback reps in live team periods. Brissett 25, Maye 14, Zappi 10, Milton 4. 11 on 11s, Brissett 3 for 10, 4 sacks.
Ugh.
Drake Maye 3 for 6, a sack, 2 interceptions. One he airmailed to some bum-ass safety I never heard of. The other was a low throw that Kyle Duggar had to pick off that Pop Douglas, I guess, stripped.
Kyle Duggar, kicked it to the other side of the field.
I want to see a review of that one personally. It's a low throw. I want to make sure it didn't bounce. Is what before I hold that against my guy Drake Maye, I want to make sure it didn't bounce. Zappi was 2 for 4. KJ Osborne dropped 2 would-be touchdowns, says Andrew Callahan. Not sure who they were from. The picks were again from Duggar and Ford Dement, who I don't think is making the team anytime soon. Tom Curran concluded with this. OTA access for today is over. Drake Maye was up second behind Jacoby Brissett. Appears to be making continued and gradual progress with moving more freely. He did have a couple of picks, but some nice throws as well. Offense scuffled in red zone 11 on 11, which is not a shock. So
I like that. I like that summary from Tom Curran.
Okay, so I was just going to say, latch on to whatever you want there. That's all the news as far as I can tell from camp today. But the bottom line is Drake Maye got more reps. The offense did not look good no matter who was out there, and he was the guy throwing picks. Your thoughts?
Okay, so you guys know me, from last year at this time, I don't get into training camp stats. I don't get into mini camp stats, and I certainly don't get into OTA stats. But I will say this, at this time of year, red zone is probably going to be difficult for this team in their practices that the reporters get to see for months. It's just going to be a struggle getting this team up to speed. But in OTAs, as I said the other day when we were talking about the pressure that Drake Maye is facing, this should skew more towards the offense's favor. And you can say, well, look how talented the defense is. The defense is going to be the strongest side of the ball.
Arkan, you feel that way, right?
Yes.
But it still should be skewing a little bit more favorably towards the offense, so that doesn't give me great confidence.
Okay.
But that's also who we expect them to be. Did we think that they were going to completely light it up? I think we were all pleasantly surprised and happy to hear about,
Sure.
Drake Maye he's coming along really well compared to how they thought.
Can you not light it up, but also not turn it over? Is there a happy medium in there where you're not looking great, but you're not turning it over?
I don't know if that's going to be the Drake Maye experience, Jones. We knew this from his scouting reports coming out of college. This is going to be the learning curve, him throwing interceptions.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's see if that's actually the case. I didn't necessarily expect to be seeing it in OTAs. Games, maybe. He's a rookie. But OTA, the first time you're really getting extended reps, you throw 2 picks. That's I want him to start.
Get him out of the system now.
I'm not saying bench him or get him out of the system where he can't play.
Good, because that would be crazy.
Okay, but can I say that it wasn't a good day? I'm sorry, turnovers are bad. Those are bad.
No,
those are not good.
You can't, because I want him to be loose and comfortable on our program, and we already have one person who he won't even address by name.
Okay.
Because of how he talked about him all throughout the draft process.
All I'm going to do, I want Drake Maye to start.
Y'all doing all right?
Hey, Drake.
I think Drake Maye is going to start week 1. Okay, that's what I think. And so this doesn't dismay me from that. He's the most talented quarterback they have. But I do think that this is a bad. It's okay to say he had a bad day. It doesn't sound like he had a good day.
We're going to have a lot more of these, though. This is going to be when, you don't think he's a project. I feel like you are gravitating towards that way. and I don't want to speak incorrectly for you, but I'm like, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of days where there's a lot of boneheaded throws and a lot of crazy interceptions, and you're like, that's why he doesn't play in week 1.
Okay, well, if they are those days, we'll come in and we'll call them bad days. That's all.
Yeah, and you should be ready for them too. I agree with Mego. I think you should be ready for days like this. Even if he was coming into a situation with a very good offense around him, as a rookie quarterback, you're going to expect there to be turnovers and problems and mistakes and rookie issues. But when you're running a terrible offense, it's just like, what do you expect? I mean, I heard the defense was dominating today. A couple of people tweeted that Christian Barmore, they weren't allowed to touch the QBs, so Barmore was just throwing offensive linemen into the QBs, and they were just doing whatever they wanted to out there.
I believe
guys
Chris
off.
Mason had
Chris
that
Mason,
report.
I saw Taylor Cobb, saw a couple other guys with talking about how dominant Christian Barmore was. So it's like, you know, I'm looking at this and thinking this is a good defense on this team. It's a defense with playmakers at all 3 levels who are getting older and getting better. Going up against an offense, this is just going to be really, really struggling, I think, all throughout this season.
Yeah, I'm not saying Drake Maye has to light it up. And by the way, Brissett sucked today too. Like,
yes, that's something we haven't talked about.
Okay, well, I mentioned that he was 3 for 10 in one session. I think in 11 on 11s he was 1 for 5. Do I have that? Oh no, I'm sorry. 11 on 11s he was 3 for 10. There was another session out there where he was 1 for 5. And that was 7 on 7? No, that was the red zone period. I'm sorry.
And 4 sacks.
Red zone, Brissett was 1 for 5. Overall, in that period, he was 3 for 10. So I see. In 11 on 11, he was 3 for 10, but specifically in the red zone, he was 1 for 5. So, like, Brissett sucked too. And he was taking a million sacks. But he wasn't turning it over. And so Drake Maye doesn't have to light it up. And Drake Maye can look like a project. But if Drake Maye's throwing 2 picks every day he's out there, I don't like his chances of starting week 1.
What a standard we're setting. He didn't throw any interceptions. He did take a whole bunch of sacks.
No, but I'm saying Brissett blows.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
I know Brissett blows. I feel like people talk about him like he's a good pro and you can get by with him, and it's like, no,
he's
Brissett,
a professional guy, I think is what they're saying.
Whatever. He's professional.
He's a nice guy. He's a good teammate. He's going to be good to bring people along in the locker room.
He's professional. He sucks. And so he shouldn't be that hard to beat out, but if you keep throwing picks every day, you're not going to beat him out is what I'm saying. So that's my fear from today. It's only one day. I'm not saying it's over, but it was a bad day. And so I don't like to see him throwing picks because that's the one thing where the coaching staff might say, ooh, you know what? He's showing flashes, but we can't have him out there turning it over week after week after week. He's a rookie.
Better than a pick.
Yeah, exactly. Like a rookie is going to throw picks. And so they can't expect him to have 0 turnovers. But he's the only guy out there, as good as the defense was, our kid. And Barmore was wreaking havoc. He was the only guy turning it over. And so that can't be the case if you want him to start week 1, which I do.
Yeah, I want him to as well. And I think that, you know, regardless of what happens here, even if he throws a million more picks, you're going into this season with Jacoby Brissett as your starter. I just feel like that's a mistake. But that's regardless of how he looks in these OTAs or anything else. I could see the team looking at it and saying, we can't do this. We can't put this kid out there. He doesn't know what to do. But I also think, you know, this is your 3rd overall pick, and if you're going to find out he's not ready, you got to find out right away. So that's sort of how I feel about it. But in terms of not turning the ball over, like maybe he was taking more chances than these other guys throwing out there, and I don't have a big problem with that either.
Yeah, look, I mean, more reps is good. Him working ahead of Bailey Zappi is good. Turnover is bad. I think that's pretty simple.
How did you like Greg Bedard tweeting that Bailey Zappi saved the period?
I did notice that Bailey Zappi threw a couple of touchdowns at the end of the period that saved the period for the offense. Which
out, they think it's man coverage, and it is.
We're gonna see. We're gonna see if the reps get doled out differently. But as Mayo said, don't read into the reps. There are no starters. There's no depth chart, which I don't buy for a second.
Because everybody sucks.